Truth of Slirlas, Trillas-class scout ship. Hunter Scout Squadron 11, Exalted Crusader Fleet. Periphery of Messier 35, the Shoebuckle Cluster, 3,048 light-years from Earth. Laurie could barely contain her excitement as the techs worked to translate the reciprocated signal they received from the captured vessel. It had made no attempt to try to break away yet, though the techs told her the power level readings were steadily increasing. Using her fingers, she zoomed in on the small hollow interface in front of her that was displaying the unknown vessel, the minute movements of her blunted claws making the small vessel rotate as she closely inspected the damage it had suffered. There were many breaches in the hull, and signs of weapon scorches were clearly visible, the sensor tech already confirming that the residual signatures matched what was found on the wreckage of alien vessels destroyed by the evil Balrican during their journey through the great voids of death. She continued to manipulate the hologram, her trained eyes taking notice of the design of the ship and the remaining weapon ports and sensor apparatuses. She admired the graceful lines of the vessel, wondering what the primary purpose of it was, as it was too large to be a hunter scout, but too small to be a dedicated attack ship. Her pupils dilated as she looked at the scan results of the null space capacitors. They were nearly empty, with only a small amount of argonium remaining to travel less than 80 light cycles, if that. This is why they are not able to break the null space dampener hold. They do not have sufficient reserves, she realized. She heard the hiss of excitement from one of the techs and looked at him as she closed out the hologram. Battle Matron, the signal has been converted to our dialect by the translation matrix. I will play it now. A moment later, a computerized voice came over the speakers, and she listened intently as the words of the unknown stranger sounded in the command chamber. After the computer translation ended, Laurie felt both elation and worry manifesting themselves within her spirit. The speaker had indicated their willingness to open a dialogue, but they were not part of the advanced and powerful fleet within the stellar cluster, if what they were saying was the truth. They also said they were part of a different fleet nearby, and the vessel was expecting reinforcements, which she believed to be true. Otherwise, why would they expose such knowledge and give away the tactical advantage of a potential surprise ambush by not speaking of it? Her thoughts became frantic as she tried to predict what would happen if she didn't make the proper decision. The rest of the fleet was coming behind them, and though they had an insurmountable advantage being almost 200,000 ships strong, they could not afford to make new enemies, not when they needed every ship they had to fight their evil cousin kin. They needed to incorporate with the species in the galactic arm they were heading towards. She found herself speaking before realizing she had already made her decision as she addressed the rest of her crusaders in the chamber, almost as if compelled to do this. This was highly unusual for her, but she could feel within herself that it was the right choice. We will be the first one to show that we mean what we say and desire peace. If they flee, we will let them go. If they stay, then we will know they are speaking the truth and wish to establish a dialogue with us as well. Release the vessel, and have our hunters withdraw to 2,000 dracs to show them that we will not prevent them from fleeing if they wish to do so. A series of hoots and hisses sounded as her fellow crusaders followed her orders and began to pass them along to the other hunter scouts. She felt the thrumming of the null space dampeners deep within the ship lessening as it powered down, and she could hear the communication tech working with the translation matrix as the sounds of an unknown language played from the tech's station. She opened her right ear hole to its maximum extent and shaped the protective membrane into a conical form to enhance her hearing sensitivity, suppressing the desire to shrink the size of the ear hole as the sharp, monotone language entered it. It was nothing like the dialect of the Balisar, and she found herself wondering how their feelings could be expressed without the variety of sounds that conveyed emotional intent among the Balisar. The language seemed too simplistic to her. Perhaps they did not experience the same emotional range as her people did, or maybe they used visual cues such as scale color changes like they did. "We are receiving another signal, Battle Matron," the tech hissed, his scales turning almost violet with happiness and excitement. Laurie flicked out her tongue in anticipation, tasting the growing excitement of the others in the air currents as she indicated with her right upper dominant hand for the signal to be played. The grating monotone of the new language the captured vessel had sent along with their signal sounded over the speakers, and she chirped to stop the tech from converting it to their language, wanting to see if she could pick up on the emotional intent behind the speech before the words were translated. Both her ears were now dilated to their maximum size, and she could sense the feminine quality of the voice, as well as the pitch changes. Perhaps she is a battle matron like me. This bodes well for our first tasting of sense if true, Laurie mused as she finally gave the signal for the translation to be done after the speakers went silent. The tech chirped in acknowledgement and initiated the computer program to convert it to their language. This time the speaker's voice was used instead of the computer's lifeless approximation, and Laurie could truly feel the intent of the words as she listened to them. "Thank you for releasing us. We appreciate this gesture of goodwill and confirmation of your desire to establish peaceful relations between our two peoples. I wish to establish a visual connection with you. It is important to humans, my species, to see who we are speaking with. I am forwarding the video protocols we use to establish a visual interface. On my honor, I promise that there are no malicious programs embedded within it, though I am certain you will wish to confirm that for yourself. If you find the codecs we use to be compatible, please initiate the handshake protocols if you wish to do so. If not compatible, or if you do not wish to initiate visual contact at this time, I understand, and we will continue to communicate over audio. I await your response, and I thank you again for releasing my vessel." By the time the speakers went silent, Laurie was trembling with barely contained excitement. After all this time, they will finally taste the scent of a still-living species that had gained the wisdom to fly into the firmament and was yet to be eradicated by the evil Balri Khan. Not only did they finally catch up to their evil cousin kin, but these unknown strangers had declared themselves to be enemies of the Balri Khan, which meant that they were also crusaders against evil, just as they and the rest of the exalted fleet were. The matron also spoke of personal honor, a trait held in high esteem among her people and a shared concept between them. Perhaps this will form the foundation of their scent sharing. "Are our visual protocols compatible, Tech Iralask?" The tech chirped in acknowledgement without looking at her as he continued to work his station controls without confirming. She forgave the improper conduct considering the circumstances and nervously clacked her blunted claws on the arms of her nesting bench, the air thick with pheromones of anticipation and excitement. The tech finally looked up and responded to her query, his face scales flushing as he realized his unintentional disrespect only after the fact. "Forgive me, Battle Matron. I did not mean to—" "It is already forgotten, Tech Iralask. Are they compatible?" His face scales, which were turning bright yellow, quickly turned dark blue again as he purred in contentment from the pardon she granted him before answering. "Yes, Battle Matron, though they appear to operate on a somewhat different visual spectrum than we do. They see some visible light of the ultraviolet spectrum that we do not, and we see some visible light on the ultraviolet spectrum that they do not, according to the computer analysis of their visual signal coding. We will be able to see each other visually, but there will be some color discrepancies and visual anomalies until the computers of both ships are able to compensate, if they are able to do so at all. There are no signs of malicious code or programs that our computer can detect, though that doesn't mean there are none, Battle Matron." She clearly understood the implied warning of the tech, but she had a good feeling about the way things were going, and she instinctively felt as if they could trust these crusaders based on their actions and words so far. They were still holding their position despite being released, and they initiated signal reciprocity, which meant they desired to make common cause with the exalted crusade in her estimation. "I will heed your warning, Tech Irlask, and it will be noted in my recollections to absolve you of blame if anything happens. The fault will lie with me alone. Establish the visual link. Is the translation matrix able to convert my words into their language?" The tech hooted, confirming the translation matrix was properly reconfigured before bowing slightly in thanks for her vow to take the blame before his blunted claws began to rapidly tap on his panel. The main viewer, showing the now freed ship, went blank before both Balisar programming ideograms and the strange programming code of the other vessel rapidly scrolled across the screen. It flickered multiple times as the handshake protocols were initiated, and then a faded and somewhat shimmering visual representation of the unknown vessel's command chamber appeared. Laurie stared in fascination at what appeared to be a pale-skinned mammalian ape with strange garb covering most of the body, and a large mass of black curly fur hanging down off the top of the head and almost reaching the two shoulder joints. She noticed the telltale signs of mammary glands as she eyed the two fleshy protuberances in the center of the chest area, just like the females of other mammalian species they had encountered in their own area of space when they decided to stop hiding and begin to explore the immediate vicinity around their new home. She is a matron. This bodes well if they are a matriarchal culture like we are, she thought excitedly as she waited for the matron to show signs of receiving the visual link. The mammalian ape looked down and then back up several times, seeming to be speaking to someone else as her arms moved animatedly while operating something below the visual range of the viewer. This one only has two arms like the other upright mammals. How do they function effectively with only two arms and hands? She felt bad for the matron being so restricted, as she imagined how much longer tasks would take with just two arms. The screen flickered one more time, and then the matron stared right at her, seeming as if caught in a trance for several intas before speaking loudly and forcefully while baring her square and very white teeth in what could only be anger or hate. One of the female's hands pointed at the viewer as she said more words, her eyes filled with unmistakable fury as the computer struggled to properly translate, unable to find suitable approximations of what were surely profane words, and replacing them with the Balisar word for unknown. You mother unknown unknown. You will not be taking us alive, you Balrican unknown. Do you think I am stupid enough to fall for this, that I wouldn't see you for what you are unknown, you? Eat this, you pieces of unknown unknown. Unknown initiate overload and give me emergency flank speed. Put us right in the middle of these unknown. The female's hand that was pointing at them slammed down on something below the visual range of the viewer before the female brought both of her hands up again, this time with all fingers closed into a fist except for one still sticking up as she pumped it towards the viewer. Laurie cringed at what was surely an obscene gesture or warding sign, feeling the power and intent behind it as multiple warning hisses erupted from the techs. Battle matron, we are picking up signs of a reactor overload. They are going to self-destruct and are heading right for us. We need to flash out or we will be destroyed. Order the others to flash out now. We will hold our position. We will show her that we are not like our evil cousin kin. If they are truly righteous crusaders who fight for life like we do, then they will not kill us just to sacrifice themselves. None of the techs responded to her command as they stared at her in shock. Order the others to flash out now! Her sibilant fury snapped them out of their trance state, and she turned back to the viewer, locking eyes with the matron who was looking at her with pure hate. I am Battle Matron Laurie of the Truth of Slirlas. We are not Balrican. We are Balisar, and they are our enemy, just as they are your enemy. We were forced to flee from our home world because of our evil cousin kin, and we carry the shame of their evilness upon us, even though we have done no such things as they do. She ignored the warning hiss of the tech as he called out 32 intas till estimated core overload, and continued to stare directly into the hate-filled eyes of the mammalian matron. We have traversed the great voids of death they left for thousands of light cycles. We have felt the loneliness of many suns who still shine their life-giving light and warmth on now-dead worlds that can no longer give thanks for it. We have come to pay the life debt incurred by the evil Balrican and to remove their evilness from this galaxy. We have come to fight for the living. If you wish to sacrifice yourselves, then do so. We will remain here and you will have to kill me and my fellow crusaders as well. We will not attack you to defend ourselves, and this will make you a slayer who steals life from others, just like the Balrican do. I do not think you are a slayer, and perhaps in the afterlife you will see that we are not enemies, and I will plead on your behalf when we stand before the Creator. I will tell the Creator, absolve my sister matron who also fought for the living. She knows not what she did, and I have already forgiven her. 8 intas. The tech hissed quietly as Laurie continued to look at the matron, seeing the wild and hate-filled white and blue eyes softening slightly as she listened to Laurie's death declaration. Lifting her head to the bulkhead above, Laurie hooted softly before clasping her forearms and rocking her body as she purred softly to soothe her fear of dying. The other techs followed her example, and did the same as they silently prayed for the Creator to prepare a place for them in his endless nest. Laurie closed her eyes for the last time, saddened not to die, but by the fact that it wouldn't be in righteous battle against the evil Balri Khan. A sharp slapping sound rang across the now silent command chamber, and Laurie brought her head back down in surprise to look at the viewer from where the sound had originated. The female ape was bent over and breathing heavily as she was looking down, her two arms moving quickly as she spoke to another they could not see. Laurie felt hope rising inside of her as the time for the core overload passed. The tech confirmed her hope 2 intas later. "I am detecting a large heat bloom emanating from the vessel. Power level readings from their core are dropping, Battle Matron." Relief flooded through Laurie as the matron finally looked back up and locked eyes with her. She could see the sheen of moisture on the large pale forehead of the mammal as she began to speak, the computer translating her words almost instantaneously. "I have stopped the self-destruct, Battle Matron. I want to believe what you are saying, but it is very hard to get past that you are the same species as the Balricans. I am Sheila Mizrahi, and I want to try again if you are willing. I am sorry for trying to kill you and your crew. I thought you were trying to trick us, and I know what the Balricans do when they capture ships. As long as you don't try to capture us again, I promise to not attack you." Laurie chirped loudly, feeling her face scales flushing with happiness as blood rushed to them. She chirped again, lowering her head and turning it to the side to bare her throat, hoping the matron would understand that it was a sign of acceptance and submission. The matron stared at her, and Laurie could sense her confusion even through the viewer. She chided herself for her dullness of mind a moment later. The matron would not know what she was doing, nor how to properly respond, an easily forgivable oversight considering the circumstances. Right before Laurie was about to lift her head back up, the matron awkwardly lowered her own torso and turned her head to expose her neck, her eyes locked onto Laurie's in a way that only apex predator species did. "Is she trying to dominate me?" Laurie wondered as the matron continued to stare into her eyes and challenge her. Laurie's hackles began to instinctively rise at the challenge before she consciously suppressed it. She felt her spinal feathers settling back down as she breathed deeply to control her anger, and she could feel her face scales cooling down. The matron was not of the Balisar. She would not know what she was doing. Laurie reluctantly averted her eyes in submission, willing to allow the matron to dominate her this one time if it meant they could re-establish peace and move on to properly sharing sense. Her confusion grew as the matron also averted her eyes, and she almost shrieked in frustration as she finally realized the matron was just mimicking her own actions. Laurie lifted her head and resumed looking at the matron, who followed her example and was now standing fully upright. "She is trying to show me respect by mimicking me. This is good, though confusing," Laurie realized with exasperation as she thought about what to do next. Perhaps an offer to repair her vessel will show their good intentions and help establish trust between them. "Battle Matron Sheila Mikrahi. Our fleet is following us and will be arriving anon. We have mobile ship repair vessels and factory ships that can fabricate plates and repair your hull damage if you would accept our offer of assistance. I also know your argonium reserves are low. I will have my ship eject a full reserve tank and have it drift in your direction. It is my gift to you, along with the offer to repair your ship, as a way for us to show contrition for capturing your ship and further damaging it. You can take it and use it to leave the area if you wish, though I respectfully ask you to remain so we may continue to taste each other's scents. The reserve tank has enough argonium to allow a vessel equivalent to the size of my ship to travel 500 light cycles. Do you have the means to retrieve it and bring it inside your cargo bay?" The matron's facial expressions were a mystery to her, not having any experience to determine what they meant. But she did see the eyes widening slightly, which she instinctively felt was a good indication rather than a bad sign. The matron moved her head up and down several times, again something Laurie did not understand the meaning of as the matron replied. It only took a moment for the command chamber speakers to activate as the computer began to convert the words once it detected the matron's language. "I thank you for this gift, Battle Matron. Larry, please forgive me if I am saying your name incorrectly. I intend no disrespect. I have automated cargo arms and grapplers that will be able to grab the tank and bring it in. Please do not be insulted, but I will be scanning it to ensure the argonium is compatible. I am sure you understand, considering the circumstances. As much as we appreciate your kind and generous offer to help us repair our ship, we will have to respectfully decline and depart as soon as possible. I am concerned about the reinforcements coming in response to my distress call possibly misconstruing you as an aggressive force. I am sure you would like to avoid any misunderstandings as well. If you are still intending to enter the stellar cluster, will you be remaining there for some time? Will you be continuing along this present course for the galactic arm towards the galactic core? I will inform my government of you, and I am sure they will be sending an official diplomatic envoy to make proper first contact between our respective peoples. Laurie felt her scales flushing again in sadness, not wanting the matron to leave so soon after they had just agreed to not be enemies. But at least there was hope. The matron clearly stated she would inform her matriarch, and that they would send official envoys to make contact. As she began to respond, one of the techs hooted a warning. A small construct just flashed out next to the vessel, Battle Matron. Our scanners were unable to detect the transition threshold, and there were no signs of imminent arrival. We were only able to detect it because of the powerful signal the construct directed towards the vessel. The matron began to speak again, and Laurie turned her eyes back towards the viewer to listen as she saw unmistakable signs of fear in the eyes of the mammal. That is one of our unknown drones, Battle Matron. It detected a large force of ships coming our way, and they will be here in less than 10 unknown. Please, we need the tank of argonium now so we can flash out. Laurie could clearly detect the fear in the voice of the matron, and she felt her own rising in response as her spinal feathers began to stiffen again. Then they are not of your fleet, matron, if you wish to flee. Perhaps they are from the other unknown fleet we have come to share sense with inside the cluster. No, they are Balrican, Larry. Over 50 warships according to the unknown drone. Please eject the argonium so I can save my crew. Growls emanated from the techs as they realized the matron was warning them of approaching Balrican. At long last, they will finally do battle with their hateful cousin kin. Before she even knew what she was doing, Laurie clenched the arms of her nesting bench in equal measures of anticipation and fear as she leaned forward and shrieked a war cry. The first one of the exalted crusade since it left their home worlds. The others responded with their own shrieks, and Laurie felt her blood growing hot as the sounds of the battle cries echoed off the bulkheads, and she saw their spinal feathers going erect. She saw the matron visibly flinching as her skin went even paler, and she felt herself becoming bloodlusted by the mammal's obvious fear response as she began to loudly issue new commands. Calculate a light jump to bring us within 200 dregs of the vessel and eject the reserve tank. Issue the battle call and bring back the others. Have them form a tharishul around the matron's vessel and prepare to defend her with their lives. Have Battle Matron Laksa take her ship to the fleet to report that we have found the Balrican and of our immediate need for war packs to reinforce us. The time has come at long last, exalted crusaders. Prepare for battle. The techs responded to her commands with more shrieks, their blood-curdling cries reaching a fevered pitch within the command chamber that made her soul soar with elation. Now she knew what the call of battle felt like for the first time, and she found herself enamored with the new sensation. She had been dead for so long inside since the great voids of death, and now she felt alive again in a way she had never felt before. She turned her gaze back to the viewer, the pale and wet skin of the matron's face bringing her back to the moment as she felt her own spinal feathers go erect, their sharp and poisoned barbs ready to kill any who attempted to sever her spine with their teeth. She barked for silence, and the text quieted down immediately in response to her vocalization, making her extremely proud of their discipline. She locked eyes with the matron again as she began to speak, making sure she dominated the mammal this time as she began to issue orders. Hold your position. We are going to light jump to you and eject the reserve tank. The other hunters will form a tharishul around you and protect you until you are able to flash out to safety. They will be flashing out around and near you. Do not fire on them or target them, Battle Matron. They will be bloodlusted and will respond aggressively, do you understand? The matron silently moved her head up and down several times again, and Laurie took that as a sign of agreement or compliance. Good. Hold your position. We will be there anon, Battle Matron Sheila Mikrahi. The matron moved her head up and down again, and Laurie signaled for the connection to be closed before looking around at her fellow crusaders. All the techs were looking at her, waiting for her command. She flicked her tongue out in anticipation, tasting the fighting pheromones of the others in the circulating air as she raised her dominant hand. Execute! Privateer Yoni Lutera, the Star Marauder, periphery of Messier 35, the Shoebuckle Cluster, June 15, 2176 AD. Sheila stared at the now blank view screen, feeling her body trembling from the display she just witnessed. It wasn't the sheer physicality of their response to the coming of the Balricans that scared her so, though seeing their faces turn black as large, vicious-looking feathers popped out from their spines was utterly terrifying. It was the shrieking vocalizations and the snapping of their jaws, with the sound of rows of sharp, yellowed fangs clacking together that paralyzed her and made her almost shit herself. It caused an atavistic freeze response that she could not control, and it reminded her of a nature documentary she watched long ago about how tiger roars caused infrasound paralysis in their prey and made them involuntarily freeze right before the tiger attacked. Sheila, the lead vessel is showing the same energy signature buildup I detected before they made the lightspeed transition. I am activating our defensive systems. Annika, do not attack or target them. Activate the systems and whatever weapons we have remaining, but do not target the vessel or any of the ones with them when they flash out. Affirmative. The lead vessel has made the light jump and is now 167 kilometers off our port bow. They have ejected a small container. I'm scanning the object to verify its contents. Sheila waited with growing anxiety as she stared at the single vessel on the view screen. It was maintaining its current position off the port bow, and she could see numerous armored hatches sliding aside before nasty-looking turrets began to emerge. My scans indicate processed argonium and nothing else, Sheila. The amount will allow the ship to travel 472.8 light-years. It is currently drifting towards us at 1,327 kilometers per hour. Deploying cargo drones to intercept now. Good. Get it inside and have the bots extract the argonium into our tanks. Continue to hold our position, Annika. The other scout ships are going to flash out around us according to the battle matron. What did she call it again? Tharishul, Sheila. The closest translation to Republic Standard is the Mother's Ring. I believe it is reminiscent of the protective circle animals form around their young when being attacked by predators. I see. Continue to hold position and let me know as soon as we are finished extracting the argonium. Annika cut off the rest of her sentence as proximity alarms sounded. Transition thresholds forming all around us. The view screen brightly flared from multiple exit flashes a moment later as over a dozen ships emerged from transition thresholds into normal space in a sphere formation with the star smack in the middle. Scans indicate these are the same ships that flashed out when you began to overload the core, Sheila, minus one ship. They're all opening their weapons ports, and I'm detecting signs of hull polarization technology. Scanning to verify. Hull polarization, didn't we try that before abandoning it because of the enormous energy and processing requirements, Annika? That is correct. As well as the possibility of enemies discovering the potential weakness of rapidly rotating their energy weapon modulations to bypass the hull polarization before the generators could adapt. The Republic ultimately did a cost-benefit analysis and deemed it technologically infeasible and fiscally irresponsible at the time to continue dedicating resources to the project. Well, it seems as if they've figured out a way to utilize the technology, Annika. Take all the scans you can so we can bring it back home. An alert appeared on the communications console, and Sheila saw it was an audio-only comm request from the battle matron. She activated the two-way audio and cleared her throat before speaking. Mizrahi here. What do you need me to do, battle matron? She listened to the initial harsh hissing and guttural clicking sounds, feeling a little guilty about not being able to help but cringing at the horrible sounds before Annika began to translate what was being said. Battle matron Sheila Mikarahi, I have sent a hunter scout back to the fleet to gather war packs to fight. For now you will remain within the Tarishul. We will protect you until you are able to flash out. You are to do so as soon as you are able. This is my order to you as Battle Matron Laurie of the Hullek clan. Please tell your matriarch and chieftainesses of us. Tell them we are here to fight the evil Balrican and that we wish to join forces with yours to fight for the living. You are the first of the still living we have come across in many cycles, and we wish to incorporate with you and your allies. We will fight our evil cousin kin and interrogate any survivors to extract information from them. After we execute them, we are going to taste the sense of the advanced fleet in the stellar cluster. We hope to convince them to join our crusade as well. If we are not successful, we will continue heading to the galactic arm. I am sending a stellar map with coordinates to a system along the outer edge. Please safeguard the map and bring it to your matriarch. We will send our envoy there and wait until your matriarch sends your own so we may properly share sense. The rest of our fleet will take a different path so we do not lead the Balricon directly to the system. Farewell, Battle Matron Sheila Mikrahi. May we share sense again anon. Before Sheila could respond and thank them for trying to save her and the ship, the line was closed on the Battle Matron's end, the click having a finality to it that made her sad. She stared at the view screen for several moments, sending heartfelt thanks and a prayer for them before turning her attention back to the ship. Annika, how much longer before we can flash out? 4 minutes, 49 seconds, Sheila. Annika, recall all the drones and have them latch onto the hull. When are we expecting the Balricans to arrive based on the spy drone's report? I have calculated their arrival and estimate they will flash out within 52 seconds if they have maintained their course and speed since the spy drone returned. What are your orders, Sheila? We hold our position, Annika. We will follow the orders of the Battle Matron and flash out as soon as we are able, and we don't look back. We need to tell the others about these new... What did they call themselves? Balisar, Sheila? I find myself regretting having to leave them behind to fight while we retreat, Sheila. I know, Annika, I do too, but we have no choice. Sheila replied quietly, feeling like a coward for running away while others fight and die for them. It rankled her, and she distracted herself by watching as the last 2 spy drones flashed back out on the starboard side in response to the recall command and began to latch themselves to the hull. Spy Drone 4 has returned and reports the imminent arrival of the Balricans, Sheila. Please take the captain's seat and prepare for combat, Commander. Sheila did as Annika asked, noticing the change from Sheila to Commander as she hurried to the captain's chair and strapped herself in with shaking hands. She felt the usual pre-combat jitters taking hold of her, and without thinking of it, her breathing rate changed as the long years of training took over. She put on the void helmet and the pressure gloves that were hanging off the side of the chair and called out for Annika to vent the atmosphere as she repositioned the 2 small combat holoscreens in front of each arm. Annika, did we receive the stellar map? Is it compatible with our own astrometric charts? Affirmative, Commander. I have downloaded the map and all our records into the black box drone as well. All available weapons are activated. We have 6 missiles, 3 torpedoes, and 4 particle beam turrets charged, 1 bow turret, 2 starboard, and 1 aft turret. Point defense systems are active. 63% coverage is available. I will attempt to maneuver the ship and avoid presenting our port side to the enemy. Time to flash out, 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Time to estimated arrival of Balricans, 12 seconds. Thank you, Annika. Activate the holotank and display the battle space. Annika beeped before the holotank shimmered into existence in front of her, showing a 3D representation that rotated as a single blue icon appeared in the middle of the sphere of the now green icons. The bridge lighting switched off and was replaced with the red battle lighting as the proximity alarms blared again, casting an eerie glow that sharpened her senses. Transition thresholds forming in 3 clusters. Distance, 32,000 kilometers off the ventral, starboard, and bow sections relative to our position. Sheila pivoted her eyes to the smaller holoscreens Annika put up on the side of the tank, her heart slamming in her chest as the thresholds flared brightly before the Balrican warships began to emerge into normal space. "Are you fucking kidding me?" she screamed as Annika finished categorizing the types of warships that were now charging at the protective sphere of Balisar ships in a pincer maneuver. 6 battleships, 14 heavy cruisers, 22 heavy destroyers, and 11 scout frigates were what they were facing. And she felt dread gripping her heart as she realized none of the scout ships protecting the star would survive against such overwhelming combat power if their reinforcements did not arrive in time. The Mother's Ring began milling in a seemingly random pattern, and she saw the hulls of the Balisar ships fluorescing before they began to shimmer. The Balrican ships opened fire, and Sheila gasped as 4 of the Balisar scout ships were bracketed by multiple particle beams that were mocked up on the holotank by Annika. Instead of being torn apart as she expected, the invisible beams seemed to harmlessly splash against the polarized hulls as flashes of energy marked the impact points before superheated particles were ejected away from the targeted areas like ablative armor plating did when hit. The targeted ships rotated on their axis, spreading the particle beam impacts as they began to return fire with their own nasty-looking heavy particle turrets that seemed way too large for scout ships to be carrying. Their invisible particle beams smashed into the Balrican ships, and she gasped in shock as she saw the bows of 2 Balrican heavy cruisers that were firing at the 4 ships simply vanish under the subatomic onslaught of the Balisar weaponry before the beams tore into the now exposed interiors. The other Balisar ships all targeted the closest battleship and fired at the same time, and she marveled at the excellent fire control and precision coordination being exhibited as the heavy armor plating on the starboard side of the battleship boiled before turning into useless slag and collapsing inwards. A second later, the port side of the battleship was torn open as the beams drilled clear through the massive warship, and it ruptured in several places from internal explosions before the spinal support superstructure snapped clean in half. Sheila stared at the 2 halves of the battleship, her heart soaring at the sight of thousands of Balricans tumbling in the vacuum. Holy shit, Annika, what kind of particle beams are those? Collect any intelligence you can on the weapons being fired, both Balrican and Balisar. I already have been, Commander. The beams are more powerful than standard particle beams. They appear to be equivalent to 60% of the power output and destructive potential of antimatter-powered particle accelerator beams, though much longer ranged. Alarms blared a second later, and Sheila felt herself being pressed against the chair as the star suddenly accelerated before the engines cut out, and the ship pivoted. Less than a second later, she was shoved to the right against her straps as the port-side thrusters kicked on at full power, and she felt the elephant sitting on her again, missiles and kinetic slugs inbound, executing evasive maneuvers. The engines fired again, and the ship pivoted 2 more times before going into a spin that made her almost vomit as she felt and heard the ship firing the point defense lasers and grape-shot turrets. The ship bucked violently as it was hit by a glancing blow from a kinetic slug that tore a huge chunk out of the dorsal section, and the hull rang from multiple impacts as 2 missiles were destroyed by the point defenses less than 100 kilometers from the ship, peppering the starboard side with hypervelocity fragments. Everything was happening too fast, and Sheila kept her mouth shut and let Annika fight the ship as multiple hull breach alarms sounded. The star's other weapons began to fire, the red lighting dimming as the reactors diverted energy to the few remaining particle beam turrets, and the ship shuddered several times as Annika fired off the rest of the missiles and torpedoes. She heard the null space capacitors start charging, and her fear lessened somewhat as she realized they were preparing to flash out. "Hold on just a little longer, baby. You got this," she murmured quietly to the ship, hoping it would hear her words of encouragement and fight just a little longer to hold on for her and the crew who called it home. 12 seconds to flash out. The ship was hit again, and the entire aft end bucked up wildly as the hollow tank blanked out several times before fading away. Sheila struggled to keep breathing as the ship continued to execute evasive maneuvers. "Annika, what?" The ship felt like it was punched by the hand of God himself as it was hit again, and a horrible groaning noise echoed in the aft section, followed by the sounds of the star breaking. All the lights and panels went dark, plunging the bridge into pitch blackness as the null space capacitors stopped thrumming, and she felt her stomach flip from the sudden loss of gravity. She then heard the worst sound one could hear in space, the sound of the reactor shutting down as the background thrumming became a fading whine that turned into a final whimper, before finally going silent as the reactor scrammed itself. "No, no, Annika!" Sheila called out frantically as she felt the darkness smothering her like a malevolent spirit. She was terrified of the dark, and this was her worst nightmare being realized right now. She was suddenly a helpless little girl again, scared and alone as she called out for Annika in a whimpering, childlike voice. "Annika, please, don't leave me alone in the dark. Annika." There was no answer, and the ship bucked again before spinning wildly out of control. The gravity generators were unpowered, and now she could feel every G-force crushing the life out of her as the air was stolen from her lungs and the blood drained from her head. Her last coherent thought was of the captain and the crew, the voice in her head begging their forgiveness for failing them as the blackness without became the blackness within. And then she was no more. Courage of Grilka, Direfang-class dreadnought. Periphery of Messier 35, the Shoebuckle cluster, 3,048 light-years from Earth, holding in null space. The Protector observed the Shadow Scout drones slipping back into null space, pleased with the lack of observable transition thresholds. As one, they all began to download the results of their scans to the Courage of Grilka, and the Protector shunted 92% of its processing power to the task of analyzing the data streams for maximum efficiency. Its neural net sizzled as trillions of calculations were run until the Protector was satisfied that all possible variables and outcomes were considered. The Grillnath ships that had captured the vessel with the allies of the Creators were now fighting to protect that ship from other more powerful and numerous Grillnath vessels. These new Grillnath vessels were compared to all known ships in the databanks, and the Protector realized that they shared a design lineage and tech emissions profile that matched only one known species, the Balrikhan. It created a projection algorithm and ran it over a 120,000 cycle evolution based on all available information within its databanks. Its neural nets hummed uncomfortably as the result of the projection indicated an 87.63% probability that these ships were indeed Balrikhan in origin. The foe of the Creators it was charged with protecting was back, and they were going to destroy the only chance the Protector had to save its Creators and fulfill its final command before they went into stasis to stave off their biological termination. The unexpected appearance of the Balrikhan after 122,998 cycles since they were last detected almost caused the Protector to suffer a crippling cognition fault that took several solar seconds to resolve, though there were still random errors cropping up that forced it to create a submind to contain them as the Protector continued collating billions of data points. The vessel with the allies of the Creators had suffered severe damage and was drifting with no primary power sources detected, and of the 12 small Grillnath ships that were fighting to protect them against overwhelming odds, only 5 were still combat effective. 2 enemy battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, and 12 destroyer-sized vessels were currently heading directly for the derelict vessel, as the remaining 5 Grillnath ships nipped at their heels. The programming of the Protector included concepts of honorable conduct and an appreciation for courage and sacrifice in battle, and it saw the unscented Grillnath displaying the same concepts as they fought to the last in defense of the allies of the Creators. Perhaps they were worthy of initiating first contact protocols with, after all, and the Protector made its decision before issuing orders over the command network. Warpack 1, execute attack pattern 4. Secure the allied vessel and destroy all enemy ships marked as Balrikhan. Unless attacked, ignore the unscented Grillnath scout vessels. Warpack 2 through 18, hold position and veil the pelt. Ears low, tail still. The Protector activated the direct neural link to the combat systems and felt itself becoming one with the Courage of Grilka. As the status reports entered its awareness, the Protector felt the offensive and defensive command nodes merging with it, and now the weapons and shields were an extension of itself. It felt powerful, and pleasurable sensations made its neural nets quiver with anticipation of fulfilling its primary function as it activated the null space engines and sent the final command to all 83 waiting warships of Warpack 1. Attack. Truth of Slirlas Trilas-class scout ship. Hunter Scout Squadron 11, Exalted Crusader Fleet. Laurie shrieked in frustration as a pack of Balrikhan warships broke through the rapidly diminishing Tharishul and headed directly for their new allies, firing dozens of missiles and small kinetic slugs at the matron's ship. I want all available ships to reorient and attack the breaching force. Establish Firelink protocol to slave all weapons to our battle computer and target the 2 battleships first. Execute. Laurie was thrown forward against the harness as the bow thrusters and engines were fired to arrest the ship's momentum, and she felt her stomach floating as the ship flipped over before being thrown back against her nesting bench. An unbearable weight pressed down on her as the aft engines blasted at emergency thrust, and she clenched her entire body to keep the blood in her brain, seeing the edges of her sight darkening before the gravity generators finally compensated and brightness returned to her peripheral vision. The G-forces lifted off her just enough so she could finally breathe, and she desperately drew in precious air as the sounds of the bow turrets firing drowned out the chattering of the techs for several intas before the turrets entered their cool-down and recharge cycle, as the chamber lighting returned to its normal brightness. On the viewer, she could see the matron's ship executing complex evasive maneuvers that gave her pause as the vessel impossibly dodged a salvo of small mass driver slugs and missiles. A flash of mild jealousy passed through her as the matron's ship continued to expertly evade the fire of the Balrican bearing down on them, firing their own point defenses with an unbelievable accuracy that destroyed another 10 missiles as the ship rotated along its axis and spat out death all around it. This battle matron and her clan are blessed to have such crusaders among their ranks. They are the allies we have been searching for, she thought to herself, as she quickly glanced around the command chamber at her own crusaders, feeling extreme pride in them as they performed their duties with skill and precision. She forced herself to focus on the battle again, her mind racing as she took in all the data being displayed on multiple holoscreens. They were thrusting at full power, but her trained eyes could see they would not be able to intercept the Balrican and blunt their attack in time. Continue firing all available weapons. Target the aft section in this location. Both battleships, she hissed angrily as her blunted claw tapped on the small holoscreen positioned in front of her right hand and highlighted the port tail section right in front of the main engines. Scans indicated it was a primary energy junction, and if they could destroy it, the battleships would lose power to both engines and weapons until they either repaired or rerouted the conduits. Our bow turrets are still cycling, Battle Matron. If we interrupt the cooldown, it'll... Keep firing, she shrieked, cutting off the weapons tech as she saw the ship they had vowed to protect finally get hit with a small mass driver slug in a glancing blow that tore out a huge section of the underbelly of the ship. She anxiously growled as 2 Balrican anti-ship missiles were destroyed a moment later just under 120 drox from the vessel, the fragments tearing into the side of the matron's ship as small geysers of gases and flash-frozen fluids erupted from the many small hull breaches created by the impacts. We will keep our promise to protect them. Keep firing all weapons until they turn to slag if need be. Pilot, prepare to hull spear the closest battleship. Divert emergency power to the bow polarization emitters and execute emergency override of the reactors. Go to 140% thrust as soon as our primary bow weapons burn out. The techs feverishly worked to execute her new commands, and she felt her scales flushing with pure rage as the Spear of Lishkar was hit by 4 missiles that were fired from the tail tubes of their quarry before vanishing in a brilliant orb of destruction. A low grumble erupted in her vocal sac as she sang for their passing, the others joining in as the morning dirge echoed off the bulkheads of the command chamber and smothered her spirit. She wanted to properly mourn them for the allotted time, but she forced herself to stop and refocus on the battle, saddened that the crusaders of the Spear of Lishkar would go to paradise in silence instead of hearing their brothers and sisters singing for them as they departed from this realm. The matron's vessel was still fiercely fighting, and she felt her lingering sadness turn into deep respect as the ship fired a salvo of missiles and torpedoes, crippling an approaching heavy cruiser that was maneuvering alongside them to deploy grapplers. Are they trying to capture them? She wondered in confusion as the heavy cruiser lost control and continued to drift unpowered, forcing one of the battleships to execute emergency maneuvers to avoid colliding with the derelict ship. Other ships had to initiate evasive maneuvers to avoid both the heavy cruiser and the massive battleship now careening through their ranks, and the entire Balrican attack formation lost cohesion as they attempted to disperse. "They are charging their null space engines, Battle Matron," the tech hissed happily, and the others hooted with pure joy for the matron and her brave crusaders they were fighting to protect. Soon they will escape, and their sacrifices this day will ensure the exalted fleet will gain new allies for the battles to come. She added her own hoot to theirs, her air sacs expanding with pride as the matron's vessel executed another brilliant series of evasive maneuvers, that caused two pursuing Balisar heavy destroyers to nearly ram into each other, further destabilizing the already disordered attack formation. Another heavy destroyer darted its way through the chaos of the Balisar formation, using the confusion of the moment as cover to flank the matron's ship as it slid up alongside them and opened their grappler ports. Like a cornered prey animal, the matron's crusaders continued to fight, and her pupils dilated with surprise as two strangely shaped turrets emerged from behind armored hatches that blended in with the armor plating. "What are these?" she wondered excitedly as she saw electricity arcing from the turrets. The two turrets targeted the smaller Balisar warship and then flashed brilliantly with a surge of raw power before two massive hull breaches suddenly appeared in the enemy warship. She purred with contentment before honking with pure joy at the trickery of the matron and her crusaders as the heavy destroyer tumbled out of control, trailing wreckage and bodies from the unexpectedly vicious bite of the still lethal Allied vessel. The Balisar ships must have detected the energy buildup of the null space capacitors because they stopped trying to reorganize and instead targeted the matron's ship with multiple particle weapons before firing a concentrated volley directly into the tail of the vessel. Multiple beams slammed into it and tore off the entire tail section, the main engine module exploding catastrophically and causing the rest of the Allied vessel to flip over entirely as flash-frozen fluids and debris poured out of the interior. She saw the interior lights flickering through the now exposed tail end as the vessel slowly rotated, and an instant later, a Balisar anti-ship missile slammed right into the side of the vessel, causing it to tumble wildly out of control from the kinetic impact of the large missile. The ship went dark, and the scanners showed a 98% drop in power level readings as she screeched with fury at what had just happened. They were so close to escaping, and now they were derelict, trapped here with the rest of them. The missile warhead must have been disarmed and used as a crippling kinetic impactor instead of tearing the ship in half, which meant they still wanted to capture it. The reinforcing war packs have not arrived yet, and she only had 5 ships still capable of combat to fight against the 2 battleships, 3 heavy cruisers, and 6 heavy destroyers still trying to capture the matron's derelict ship. Another 14 enemy ships were coming in behind them from the now broken Tharishul, the other hunter scout ships either destroyed or crippled and no longer part of this fight. "We are going to die," she realized with sadness as she forced herself to confront the truth. She flicked out her tongue, tasting the bitterness of defeat for the first and last time in her life as she acknowledged her failure. She made a promise to battle matron Sheila Mikrahai, and they will not be able to keep it. All they could do was try to slay as many Balisar as they could before their end came, and she called out her final command. "The Balisar are still trying to capture them. I will not let that happen. I will destroy them first before I let those foul beasts torture them for information before devouring them alive. It is the least we can do for our new allies. I will personally target the matron's vessel with our missiles and destroy them. It is my responsibility to end their lives after failing in my promise to them. All other ships target and fire all remaining missiles and torpedoes to saturate the enemy defenses and hide our true intentions of destroying the matron's ship. Once that is done, all ships are to hull spear the enemy ship closest to their position. We will die on our own terms, not theirs." She raised her dominant hand, surprisingly at peace with her imminent death. At least she felt the call of battle before passing, and she would go with her teeth on the throats of the enemy. The ship jerked as it was hit with a broadside of particle beams, and she ignored the strident damage alarms as she addressed the texts again to bolster their spirits and prepare them for their imminent journey to the paradise that was promised. "Fear not and be proud of yourselves, my crusaders. We had the honor of being the first to call the war cry of the exalted fleet. Our ship and your names will live on in glory and reverence for generations to come. Our memory will fuel the fires of the righteous crusade, and I am honored and blessed to have been your battle matron. We go now to paradise, my brothers and sisters. There we will receive the special love and blessings the Creator reserves for those who gave their own lives to try to save others, as promised. As promised, so shall we receive." The others intoned reverently as the ship rocked again from another concentrated volley of particle beam fire. It was time to leave this realm, and she brought her hand down as she gave the final order. "Execute!" She tapped on the hollow screen in front of her and felt the ship shudder as the missiles were fired, regretting having to slay their new allies, though it was a truly merciful act. She was shoved roughly to the right against her harness as the pilot veered the Truth of Slurlas towards the nearest battleship to hull spear them, and she struggled to breathe under the immense pressure of the thrusters, firing at 140% of rated maximum. She forced herself to keep her eyes on the viewer and watched the missiles she personally fired streaking towards the matron's ship. She will not dishonor their last moments in this realm by looking away as they die by her hands. She will sing for them as they pass from this realm to the next, and she sent a thought to the matron, willing the heart it was directed at to receive it. Forgive us for failing you and your crusaders, Battle Matron Sheila Mikraahi. At least I will finally know your scent when we stand before the Creator to give an accounting of our lives. I will vouch for your worthiness to enter paradise with us. The Balrican began to fire at the massive missile and torpedo volley. But they would not be able to destroy all of them, and they would not suspect that 5 of the missiles were targeted at the ship they were trying to capture until it was too late. The missiles were less than 5,000 drakes from their targets when many dozens of transition thresholds suddenly appeared all around them, and it took her a moment to realize they were not the warpack reinforcements she called for as strangely shaped, low-profile black ships she had never seen before came out of the unusually dim thresholds at accelerations that were impossible. Every single missile and torpedo they fired suddenly self-destructed well out of range of their targets, and she was too shocked by the sudden emergence of the unknown ships to do or say anything as the new arrivals began to immediately attack the Balrican warships. The 2 battleships were pummeled with what the scanners indicated were particle accelerators, and they were giving off energy readings well beyond anything she had ever seen before, according to the readings. She shrieked with unbridled glee as one of them turned into a miniature sun, taking out the 4 escorting heavy destroyers and disabling a nearby heavy cruiser that was trying to reorient to face the new arrivals. The second battleship broke into 3 large sections 3 inches later, as their heavy destroyer escorts were torn apart with ease by a strafing attack of smaller vessels with ferocious-looking fangs painted on their bows that she didn't notice till now. She had never seen such a thing on ships before, and she felt her spirits soaring at the visuals as missiles and torpedoes streaked out of the fanged mouth like an ancient, mythological monster spitting fire. Are these the warpacks the matron said were coming in response to her distress call? She wondered as she felt herself being gripped with indecision. The new ships were of a radically different construction than the matron's ship, and her confusion grew as she looked at the scanning results, seeing that the hull alloys and energy emissions profiles were completely different. "Battle Matron, what are your orders?" The panicked question snapped her out of her trance state, and she shook her head to clear her mind before responding. "All ships, do not target or attack the new vessels. Disregard my previous orders. Come about to return to our brothers and sisters in the Tharishul to render aid and search for—" She stopped speaking as the rest of the remaining Balrican ships exploded into brilliant orbs of energy, causing the viewer to dim as it compensated to prevent their eyes from being temporarily blinded. She felt her heart jumping up into her gullet as 2 massive fanged vessels slid up alongside the matron's ship and ensnared it with strange energy discharges that gripped the allied ship and stopped its uncontrollable tumbling. All the other vessels suddenly pivoted to face her ships with an eerie precision that seemed impossibly coordinated, and she felt her erect feathers slinking down in fear as she saw what was being displayed on the viewer and all the other holoscreens. Dozens of fanged bows with missile and torpedo ports inside them were now facing her ships with 2 glowing particle accelerator turrets above the fanged mouth like demon eyes. She saw the other techs responding the same way she did, seeing spinal feathers drooping and tasting their new pheromones flooding the air with fear chemicals as the sensor tech hissed in surprised shock before calling out, "Battle Matron, one of those ships matches the scans taken by our Hunter Scout in the stellar cluster. According to the computer, it's the same one that sent the unknown languages to us as the Scout fled." She felt her tense body relaxing slightly at the revelation, though she was still wary of all those weapons targeting them and the snarling visages as she struggled to adapt to the new circumstances confronting them. So they were not of the matron's fleet, But now there was another unknown entity involved that she did not know the sense or intentions of. She was just about to issue new orders when Tech-Ir-Lask hissed with palpable fear before calling out. "That same ship is broadcasting directly to us, Battle Matron. It is in our dialect, and they are demanding we power down and respond immediately or be classified as enemies and destroyed." Her indecision vanished as all her possible options were taken away from her by the new arrivals. These were the very ones they were intending to share sense with, and they were here now demanding she surrender or be destroyed. The ease with which they destroyed the Balrican disturbed her, but the fact that they were able to take control of dozens of missiles and torpedoes and initiate self-destruct as soon as they flashed out terrified her in a way she had never experienced before. They were obviously far more advanced than the Balisar, and if she made the wrong choice now, the exalted fleet would lose the chance at incorporating a powerful and much-needed ally into the crusade, and there was a very real possibility that she might inadvertently create another powerful enemy for the Balisar, something they did not want or need. She looked back at the viewer, seeing numerous constructs being attached to the matron's ship by the two vessels flanking it, and the sight of it made her spinal feathers go erect in protective rage as she felt her motherly instincts come back to the forefront. "What are they doing to the matron's ship?" she demanded as she looked at the sensor tech. The tech looked back down at her station, her blunted claws tapping rapidly as she ran scans to provide an accurate answer to the question. "The ship just issued the same message, Battle Matron. They say this is our final warning." Tech-Ir-Lask nervously called out again. She raised her hand to indicate silence as she waited for the sensor tech to answer her question. After an agonizingly long moment, the sensor tech stopped tapping and looked back up. "Those constructs are sealing hull breaches and sending power and air to the ship, Battle Matron. One of them is a tunnel airlock, and I am detecting small mechanical constructs moving back and forth, but no indications of life forms passing between the ships or any attempt to board them." "They are helping them," she realized as her frayed nerves screamed out for relief. She was utterly exhausted, and it took all her strength to keep her eyes fully opened as she finally made her decision. "Power down all weapons and open a channel to the ship. I will speak with them," she called out, masking her true fear and worry as she forced her voice to remain calm and strong for the benefit of the Crusaders under her command. "They have connected the channel and are requesting visual communications, Battle Matron," she hissed to acknowledge Tech-Ir-Lask's statement, and was just about to signal for the channel to be opened when she remembered how the matron reacted to her, thinking she was Balrican. She did not want the same assumption being made now, and she signaled for audio only before beginning to dictate slowly to ensure clearness of her words and intent. "I am Battle Matron Lari of the Exalted Fleet. I thank you for your assistance in defeating the Balrican and helping to save our allies that we were fighting to protect from the evil Balrican. Our visual equipment has been damaged in battle, so please forgive me for only being able to respond with audio at this time. Are you of the fleet in the Stellar Cluster? We were on our way to share sense with you and discuss the possibility of joining our fleets together to fight the Balrican. I must inform you of the imminent arrival of reinforcing war packs from our fleet. I ask that you do not fire at them when they flash out and allow me to explain the situation to prevent any unnecessary hostility between our peoples. What are your intentions with our allies? I respectfully request that you release them and allow my ships to render aid." She stopped speaking and forced herself to remain visibly composed, though her insides were gripped with severe anxiety. After another long and nerve-wracking moment, the speakers blared with a harsh synthetic voice as the strangers finally responded. "I am the Protector. I am taking the allies of my creators to the vault system and placing them under my protection. They will be accorded the utmost respect and receive any medical attention they require as we repair their ship. Any attempt to interfere will result in the destruction of your vessels. In recognition of your honorable conduct and the sacrifices you made to protect the Magnati crew on board the vessel, I will allow you to send a single unarmed vessel to the vault system to initiate first contact protocols as outlined in the Charter of the Galactic Federation. Your envoy will be allowed to enter the vault system 32 solar hours from now, and the duration of access will be 47 solar minutes before the access window is closed. Any attempt to send more ships than allotted, or after the access window has been closed, will be considered as an act of war and result in the cessation of all first contact attempts and the destruction of all ships that try to enter the vault system thereafter. You have 47 solar seconds to confirm your acceptance of this proposal. Failure to confirm acceptance will be considered as a rejection of the proposal, and any further attempts to initiate contact thereafter will be considered as an unwelcome intrusion and necessitate a hostile response. The voice stopped speaking, and Laurie signaled for the tech to mute the channel on their end. She waited until he verified it was safe to speak before looking at the sensor tech and addressing her. "Are you able to detect any life signs on those ships? I am certain this is a computer program or an artificial intelligence I'm conversing with." "I have been trying to discreetly scan them while you were speaking, Battle Matron," the sensor tech replied as her hands continued to move over her controls. "So far, I have been unable to taste anything from them. It is as if my scans are being deflected by their hulls." Laurie looked back at the viewer, seeing no choice but to accept the proposal if they were going to have any chance of incorporating with such an advanced and powerful organization. The speaker indicated they were part of a power called the Galactic Federation, and the name evoked an image of a large and powerful empire that spanned many systems in her mind as she heard it. 13 intas left, Battle Matron." Tech Irlask gently called out to remind her of the time limit imposed by the Protector. She hissed in acknowledgement before signaling for the channel to be unmuted, as she filled her air sacs with air and emptied them slowly to calm her nerves before speaking over the channel. "We accept your proposal, Protector. Will you please confirm that you will not attack the warpacks that are coming to reinforce our ships when they arrive? I confirm receipt of your acceptance of our proposal. You will send your envoy to the vault system 32 solar hours from this time in a single unarmed ship. Your warpacks have already arrived and are currently being held by our ships within a dampening field that has nullified their weapons and power systems. I will order my ships to flash out and bring your warpacks with them into normal space, and then we will depart with the allies of our creators. You will command your reinforcements to refrain from committing any hostile acts when we drop the dampening fields, or they will be immediately destroyed. Do you accept these conditions and agree to take responsibility for the actions of your reinforcements?" "I do, Protector. On behalf of myself and my Crusaders, I thank you for your restraint and your willingness to initiate a proper sharing of sense with us. The Creators imbued me with the ability to recognize and appreciate honorable conduct and sacrifice in battle. I observed these qualities during your spirited efforts to defend the vessel despite the overwhelming odds facing you. Your war packs are being returned to you now, and we will depart as soon as the dampening fields are dropped." The channel beeped, indicating the line was closed on the Protector's end. A moment later, hundreds of the unusually dull transition thresholds formed 10,000 dracs from her position before numerous black ships appeared with powered-down Balisar ships being towed behind their tails by the same strange energy discharges. Once all the ships of the warpacks were safely past the now collapsing thresholds, the black ships towing them came to a dead stop and disconnected the energy discharges before quickly maneuvering away from the immobilized ships. Laurie was already broadcasting over an open channel directed at the reinforcements while this was happening, ordering them to stand down and hold their fire as the black ships continued to move away. Once they reached 5,000 dracs from the ships of the warpacks, the black ships flashed brilliantly, sending a visible energy pulse that washed over the Balisar ships like water over stones. As the energy wave passed over the Balisar ships, they powered back up, and the black ships all flashed back into null space, including the two massive vessels that still had the matron's ship grasped between them. Laurie stared at the now empty viewer, worried for battle matron Sheila Mikrahe and her brave crusaders. Numerous communications requests started coming in from the ships of the warpacks, and she ignored them all as she spoke over the still open channel. "All ships form a tharishul around our fallen and begin rescue and recovery efforts." She noticed Battle Matron Hirlaxa's ship among the reinforcements and continued to issue her new orders. "Battle Matron Hirlaxa will command in my stead as I rendezvous with the exalted fleet and inform our matriarch of what has happened here. If any of those ships return, they are to be left alone and allowed to do what they want unmolested by our ships. Make no attempt to scan, intercept, or contact them. If the Balrican return, You are to destroy them and capture prisoners for interrogation. This is very important. Under no circumstances are you to initiate visual communications with them if they contact you. Do you understand me? They will think you are Balrican and destroy you immediately." She indicated for the line to be closed and wearily eyed the viewer for a few moments before reluctantly issuing new orders. "Set a course for the fleet and flash us out. Begin damage control efforts and what repairs we can while we are in null space." Looking directly at the sensor tech, she eyed her for a moment before speaking again. "Send a priority request for all scanning data recorded by the warpacks before they were death-feigned by the Protector's dampening fields to be forwarded to you. You will compile all the data and have it ready to be presented to the wise teachers by the time we reach the exalted fleet." As the sensor tech acknowledged her orders, she leaned back against the nesting bench and listened to the thrumming sounds of the null space capacitors charging up to flash out as she asked for a pot of hralkith to be brought to the bridge for them to drink. The hot and spicy beverage will help stave off her heavy eyelids, at least until they reach the fleet and she submits her recollections to the matriarch. She will request the honor of being the envoy, and she found herself hoping there was enough time to take a proper and much-needed rest period before the first true sharing of sense happened with the mysterious and powerful Galactic Federation, and more importantly, with their new allies the Protector took with them. Her thoughts returned to battle matron Sheila Mikrahi, who was once a stranger, but was now her battle sister after they had fought together against the evil Balrican. Lari had no choice but to believe the Protector when it said it would treat them with respect and care for them, but she still did not like being forced to give up the matron and her crew after promising to protect them. A Tharishul was not just a promise, it was an unbreakable oath to protect those within it, no matter how long it took or how many died to protect the ones inside the matron's ring. By all the sacred laws, she was honor-bound to fulfill her oath, as was every single crusader within the exalted fleet, from the matriarch to the lowliest inductee, from the eldest matron all the way down to the youngest hatchling still within their eggs. Once a battle matron calls for a Tharishul, all Balisar are required to fulfill the promise until their duty is done, or the ones inside the matron's ring release them from their vow. The last time a Tharishul was called was when the Balisar fled their homes during the Sundering Flight, as it later came to be called. Hundreds of thousands of crusaders volunteered to be left behind and formed a Tharishul to hold back the unstoppable advance of the Balrican zealots, as the great arcs were loaded with desperate refugees. For many solar days, those few fought with wild abandon, taking 10, sometimes 20 Balrican with them for every holy crusader killed. But they were too few, and the zealots were too many. After the last of the crusaders fell and the Balrican finally breached the Tharishul, the Sundering Flight began, dozens of arcs vanishing into the unknown, each carrying the last of a broken lineage on that terrible night when their skies turned to fire. And the last of the Balisar mourned the loss of their homes and their loved ones as they left it all behind. There were no songs, and there were no prayers as they fled, just the sound of the engine screaming as their world burned. She was startled out of her dark thoughts when the sensor tech hooted to let her know she had received the data Lari requested on the dampening field, and she clicked loudly to signal for the pilot to flash into null space. As the transition threshold began forming, she thought of her battle sister again. "I am coming, Sheila Mikrahi, and I am not coming alone. If the Protector has lied to us and harms you in any way, I will come back with the exalted fleet, and the Galactic Federation will see what angry Balisar are truly capable of." Sheila watched warily as the small, oddly dog-like robots continued to move around the bridge and scan everything with thin blue beams. The last thing she remembered was fighting against the terrifying darkness that was trying to take her away as the ship spun uncontrollably. She was jolted awake by a shock from one of the dog bots before the little bastard rudely scanned her and then walked off to scan something else. The bridge lighting and power was back on surprisingly, but Annika did not answer her when she whispered her name several times, and she stopped trying as she tried to get her bearings again. That was some time ago, and she had remained in her chair afraid to move as more of them came onto the bridge. She felt the familiar sensation of transitioning into null space, though she did notice the lack of a transition flash, which she didn't think was possible. She was very thirsty, and she eyed the water flask on Jameson's chair, her dry throat begging for the cold water in the insulated container. It became too much to bear, and she slowly lifted her hand to undo the restraint straps, trying her hardest to deactivate the latch as quietly as she could. Every dogbot turned to look at her as the locking mechanism disengaged, sounding like a gunshot in the silent bridge, and one of them scanned her again before surging towards her with incredible speed and scaring the shit out of her. "Fuck off!" she screamed wildly as she kicked the dogbot away from her, watching it tumble for a couple of meters as all the other dogbots suddenly covered her body with multiple targeting beams. Shit! She remained completely still, watching as the dogbot she kicked righted itself and stared right at her with its creepy metallic eyes. "I'm sorry, doggy, you scared me," she said quietly to it, hoping her animal talking voice would convince it not to kill her. She flinched as a loud, dispassionate voice suddenly boomed from the small dogbot, scaring the shit out of her even more as the others turned off their targeting lasers and resumed their scans. "It pleases me to see you have regained consciousness, Magnati. I have many questions regarding the primitive level of technology on this vessel. It seems highly unlikely the Galactic Federation would have fallen to such a level of regression despite the devastation of the war against the Balrakan. Why are there no other founders on board, Magnati?" She stared at the dogbot, not understanding a single thing it was talking about. Who are you? Why are you calling me Magnati? I am a human from the Republic of Humanity, and my name is Sheila Mizrahi. Where is Larry? I want to speak to her. I am Protector. I am taking you to the Vault System to reunite you with my creators. Your genetic modifications may hold the key to saving the creators, and I have many questions to ask of you regarding the current state of the Galactic Federation. Annika, answer me. If you are trying to communicate with the artificial intelligence, I regret to inform you that I was forced to disable it and place it within a firewall to stop its incessant attempts to protect the integrity of your systems. I must admit, for such a primitive construct, it was exceedingly difficult to bring under control and isolate. You bastard, release her now. I regret to inform you that I am unable to comply with your demands at this time. Please remain calm. I am detecting elevated blood pressure and rapid hormonal changes within your body. Fuck you, Sheila screamed at the dogbot, enraged by what it had done to Annika. She had been eyeing the plasma pistol she left on Jameson's station, and she leapt out of her chair, lunging for the pistol as fast as she could. She only managed to take 2 steps when her entire body was racked by the most painful sensation she had ever felt before, and she fell heavily on the floor, feeling the warmth of her piss spreading between her dead legs as she saw the dogbot looking at her with its lifeless metallic eyes before everything went black again.